Good, nice turnout here, yeah? All right.
40 years. I was 10 when I first did this movie. Sam was 67. So
Well, speaking of 10,
that's
Sam,
a good way to start.
thank you. Sam, you first came to prominence as an actor predominantly because you were in Blake Edwards' movie 10, correct?
Yeah, that was the first film, yes.
Okay. Now, that's what brought you to the attention of Dino De Laurentiis for Flash, correct?
Yeah, I think the short story is that when Dino was casting for Flash Gordon, his mother-in-law at the time was watching a TV show called The Dating Game. Remember The Dating Game from many years ago? Anyway, I was a guest on that, and we're talking 1978, and I guess she looked at the TV and said, I think that's your Flash Gordon right there. Yeah, that's how that started anyway, yeah.
I've heard that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Kurt Russell ostensibly were in the running at some point.
Yeah, true, and I didn't find that out till years later, because Dino really operated, Melody will talk about this, but he operated non-disclosure, confidentiality. Literally, you'd enter one door, you'd exit a different door, and I never met any other actors auditioning for the part, because he was real secretive about it.
Now, your background actually was in journalism.
Right. I had a degree in journalism from Canada in Ottawa, and then I realized that they wanted to do a thing called an internship program, which meant I had to go to the Northwest Territories and live in the igloo. So I thought, why don't I try this acting thing? So actually, I took a year after college and went to Australia, New Zealand, and Hong Kong. And one night in Hong Kong, I heard Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I don't know if any of you know Uta Hagen, but she's a brilliant Broadway actress. And I thought, because the journalism I was doing in Australia is pretty much like Rupert Murdoch. It was pretty, we want you to put a bathing suit on, and we want you to do this, and it was pretty bad, and I thought, I don't know if I want to be a journalist. What am I going to do? Well, God listens. And I was in this little place in Hong Kong, and I heard Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I thought, that's how I'm going to move people. I'm going to become an actress. And came back to America and started studying and got my cards, Screen Actors Guild, and started working. And in my situation, there was a girl named Dale Hammond, who is a friend of mine, lovely woman, and she was supposed to play this role. And whatever happened, happened. Again, non-disclosures. And whatever happened, happened. And I got a call. I was in New York just for about a week. And my boyfriend picked up the phone. He said, oh, Melody, it's Dino De Laurentiis. And I thought it was his brother. Oh, yeah. Hi, Dino. What's happening? Melody, I want you to go tonight to London. You're going to do the movie. And I went, huh? So that's how Dino worked. I mean, you didn't know from one day to the next what was going to happen. Sam had a lot of the same experiences. Yeah, so I went over. They fit me for the costume. They dyed my hair black, and I started the next day. And I had just a little bag of clothes, so I got to go home in January and get some warm clothes because it's cold over there. But it was, again, a real wacko story. And I think almost everyone who works with Dino has a wacky story. God rest his soul.
Yeah, he just loved to, and I understand
He was an impresario, a big...
after hundreds of films, he wanted to control everything. I mean, I remember I needed a new pair of shoes and some socks, and he actually had to approve that, So, and we're talking 1979. We're talking a $35 million budget. So if you do that inflation math now, I think my buddy said it equals $222 million for the same type of budget. Yeah, but he had a reason for his creativity, and he and the director, it worked out good. Even though we found out years later after we talked to Michael Hodges.
Who was the director?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, we had a little meeting, and Michael said, Sam, when I showed up every day as a director, I had no idea what I was going to do. Because Dino walked on the set, and they bumped heads. I think Michael, the director, actually kicked Dino off the set, right, numerous times. And so they bumped heads, but I mean, the finale, the final answer was I think it turned out really well for what we were dealing with, you know?
Yes, there was a costume. I was supposed to be in a hallucination when sound was in the forest and in the water and, you know, coming to, where I was supposed to be head to toe green, like a green spider. They fitted my teeth for vampire teeth. And I was going to hang from this big old spider web and spent a lot of money on it. I sat in the studio all day long being green, and it's not easy being green, and just sat there, and they came over to me about 4 o'clock and said, this is now not going to be in the movie. I went, okay, well, there's my day, okay. So it was every day, and every actor went through it.
Well, for as far as him wanting to have his own vision, like originally Fellini was considered for the film to direct it, and then also Nicholas Roeg started pre-production on it, and then that fell apart, and he even considered Sergio Leone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, also Fellini's production designer,
Yes. Danilo Donati.
Danilo Donati, he did Flash Gordon as well, so
The
that's why you
costumes and the
saw
sets
a
and
lot
the
of
production.
similarities. Yeah, isn't it great how we overlap each other?
I don't know what
You
he's
know?
saying. Don't listen to him. And don't ask him a question because he'll never stop. I'm just
Yes.
telling you that.
Well, yeah, I was able to interview Timothy Dalton a few years ago, and he said that it was just fun. That was the best way he could sum up the film. Was it the same for you guys most of the time, anyway?
Did he say it like, oh, it was fun? Or
Yeah.
did he say, oh, it was fun?
No, the first.
Yeah, Timothy and I had a cool relationship. You know, this year, by the way, this is a lead in to what I'm about to say, but this is our 40th anniversary Flash Gordon cast reunion world tour. That's why, and it launched here. And I've reached out to Timothy. Hopefully he joins us. As you know, we just want to make this quick announcement. Ornella Muti and Brian Blessed were supposed to be here, but as you know, at the last second, Ornella lives in Milan, Italy. So if you're reading the news, fake news or real news, it's all the same right now, meaning Milan is shut down, locked down because of the virus, okay? She can't leave. Brian Blessed, a couple days before, his wife, Hildegard, is in the hospital, doing better. So that's why they are not here. But the Timothy Dalton story, again, we've reached out to him, and hopefully he will join us this year. But we have this really cool, I do give long answers, don't I? We had this cool relationship because in '79, look, I didn't have any issues about Britain and, you know, the U.S., the Yankees. My grandfather still did something about the war, you know, the Brits and the Yankees. But long story short, so Timothy and I, we did these fight scenes. We did the battle disc, and we rehearsed for weeks.
The whips, yeah.
With the whips, the bull whips. And we were actually trained by a bullwhip master to use a bullwhip, a real bullwhip. So we had this agreement. We got really good practicing that we had to keep our distance because the bullwhip would actually rip into flesh and your clothes. So we had this agreement. And right when it started, and every now and then somebody would throw in that joke about the past history, you know, the Brits and the Yankees, like that contention was still existing, right? So anyway, the scene started. He snapped his whip. It hit my chest, and it hurt a lot. And so I looked at him in my mind, and I said, okay, now we don't have to act, baby. It's the Yankees and the Brits. Here we go. So, yeah, we had some good motivation at that point.
You got to tell them about the boxes, though.
The boxes,
around the
yeah.
disc,
So when we got out there to rehearse, we're on top of if you remember the rotating disc. So when it was elevated, when it was locked into its highest elevation, you know, at the top, about 27 to 30 feet. That's pretty high. And as I look down, as I'm up there, instead of airbags and all that, the English back then they would stack boxes, gigantic boxes. So I'm looking at these stacked boxes, and I know we're going to fall. We're going to have multiple falls. And the stuntman said, oh, don't worry, mate. You know, you just fall. And I said, well, do me a favor. Jump off right now, okay, and show me what happens when you fall. So he goes, okay. So he throws himself over. And on impact, you hear, ugh. I said, what is that? He goes, oh, no, don't worry. It's just, when your ribs impact the corners of the boxes, it's a little bit of bruising. But after that, it's perfect because, he's right, because after the initial impact of pain, your body makes this perfect form, a mold of your body into the boxes. It's crazy. And then they just, after you get out and you're doing this, okay, then they kick the boxes back together and stack them in an offset, and then you do it again. Fascinating. And now I think they have airbags and all that good stuff.
I got one more question, then I'll turn it over to the crowd. But I just have to say that the stump scene was so emotionally traumatic that it bothers me to watch it today.
Say that again. I didn't.
The stump scene, where you put your hand in the stump.
What do we call it? Well, it's the wood beast in
Initiation.
in the tree stump. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was not nearly as traumatic for you to film, but what was the experience like of doing that?
A little traumatic,
Okay.
I know it sounds crazy, but here's this prop which looks like a tree stump with all these different openings. And so when I get out there, it's a bit eerie looking, and the lighting is eerie. And I know the set's not been used for a week or so. And so I asked the prop guy there. I said, he goes, go ahead, reach in there. We want to do a take. I said, has anybody cleared the stump? Has anybody looked in with a flashlight? Is there anything hovering or living in there? He goes, we don't know. We haven't looked. And we really want some reality from you, okay? So it was a bit traumatic for me. So that's what they got. Yeah, it was. But from the fans, a lot of times when you come up to our tables, I'm talking to a 40, 50-year-old man, and he told me, when I was a little boy, man, I was traumatized. You traumatized me, man. That tree stump, oh my God, the wood beast. Yeah.
So not just me then, good.
Yeah.
Well, I have become a therapist and a psychologist, and I work with people with addictions and traumas. So I am trained in several forms of trauma treatment. Anybody wants, I charge $200 an hour, and I will help out everyone.
and she really is good, and I found out how she started. All self-induced, so she needs it for herself.
All right, well, I think we've got a microphone over here. Anybody has any questions for the
Or you
cast?
can just project it, and we'll repeat it.
That is also an option.
He's got one right here.
Sure, go ahead.
You want to repeat?
I wanted to know when they determined they were going to be using Queen to do the soundtrack.
Yeah, but yes, that's a good question. But what he really said, when did y'all figure out when y'all was going to use Queen as the soundtrack? Where are you from, man? I love that. Yeah.
I just translated automatically.
I love West Palm Beach, Florida. I used to talk like that. I love it. Go ahead. That's that. About Queen. When did we find out?
Well, I had no idea. That was up to Mike Hodges. But fortunately, when we found out they were going to do it, of course, we were excited, and I got to meet them. Sam actually was like working 30 hours a day, and but they were really terrific.
18, only 18.
And I think it added, without that music, it added so much to the energy of the film. Once you hear that flash, we'll walk down the street sometimes, and people will just sing it and look at you, and you go, oh, wow, I had no idea the impact. Yeah, Queen, I think, was vital to the energy of the film.
Oh, yeah. They not only complimented the film, that they brought tremendous value. And funny enough, Dino did not, when he first heard it, he didn't like it. He didn't like the soundtrack at all. He only accepted it at the premiere, which I was not at, but you were, when the audience went crazy. And that's when he acknowledged Brian May and Freddie and Queen and said, hey, great job. But Melody's right, I did not get to meet them because I was actually working in the film as opposed to just standing by. No, Melody. She worked her hours, and believe me, she did a lot of her fight scenes. You remember the fight scenes with Ornella Muti and all that?
Love those. Those pillow fights were so much fun. And she was a great sport. Absolutely.
I read an interview with Mike where he said that when Queen came to visit the set, they were actually listening to Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah, did he refer to them as Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
That's
well, no,
hysterical.
they were actually playing their music.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, they did, for the
Background,
ambiance,
yeah.
the atmosphere, yeah.
We have the
Come on,
microphone.
man. Oh, we
ahead.
got a whole line of them right here.
Go ahead. You're on.
I'm Danny. I'm from around here. When I was little watching this movie introduced me Queen and World Beyond Marvel and DC. And it just one of those movies that had impact on me like others, and I want to know how did it impact you?
That's a good question. Yeah, how it impacted you?
Right, thank you for that question. Thanks for coming. You know, it changed both of our lives because, you know, I mean, look at us today. I would be living in an igloo in Canada someday, you know, if I hadn't done this. And I think the big surprise, you know, when you're an actor, you do a job, you don't even know if you're going to get another one after. So it's just, you know, you're always looking for the job, and you're not really thinking about the legacy. You just hope it'll do well. But to think that this has lasted 40 years, I sometimes call this the Wizard of Oz of our time. Yeah. Because you watch it, you get more out of each time, the colors, the design, the magical quality of it. And I'm very proud. I'm so proud to have been with all these great actors and a great director.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I mean, Queen impacted me too. To be honest, I wasn't a big fan in the beginning. I was more of the Stones and CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. I was a big Motown, still a big Motown guy. But yeah, and then when I got to hear them and be, you know, part of that whole thing, yeah, I was very, very impressed. And Queen did impact our lives tremendously. And it's funny, even with this new, with Ted and Ted 2, even for the younger generation like you, even a little bit younger, the ones that have not seen Flash Gordon yet, but they know Queen very well, when they're trying to remember the name of our movie, they'll refer to the movie Flash Gordon as, you know, that superhero movie that Queen did the soundtrack to. So yeah, it's huge impact on all age demographics, absolutely.
Yeah, Brian made the Mad Max 2 music.
Yes.
And the band did Highlander.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right. Yeah.
Very good, yeah.
Well, you know your music.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sheree.
You want some water?
Bad timing. So when you were going to be working on the film, did you have any experience either working with or watching Sci-Fi before? Because the Wizard of Oz comparison is a great comparison because as far as Sci-Fi film goes, it's probably one of the most colorful, alien, just bonkers, and I loved it just from, you know, I was a Sci-Fi fan from when I was a little kid, and it was sort of like the epitome to me. And I just can't even imagine like y'all walking up on the set if you know weren't Sci-Fi fans before, saying, "Okay, you're gonna be playing football with a bunch of British aliens." You know, like, what was that like for you? I guess.
Well, you know, I'm so glad you brought up the football because that whole football sequence, Sam, I'm going to say created it, but I'm going to say I did. But
Or you did. You helped create that.
That's right.
That football, that action
But
scene.
it started with him.
You were my cheerleader. You were painting my you know what. Yeah, go ahead.
And I continue. Basically, in that scene, you know, those guys in the outfits are holding these kind of eggs, like Fabergé eggs.
Yes.
And Sam said, they
I
look
would
like
say,
footballs.
They look like footballs.
And then he said to the
Let's-
stud man,
I said, you know what? Let's turn this into a football play.
and I said,
Let me be your head cheerleader.
no, I didn't say that. Now he thinks he listens to me. I said to myself, well, if he's the All-American, I guess I have to be the All-American girl, which is why I decided to do the cheerleader and come up with Go Flash Go. It was not in the script.
Yes.
And then I echoed it throughout the film and the wedding scene and all that sort of stuff. But we had that
All-American,
latitude
yeah.
to do that kind of stuff because basically nobody knew what they
Well,
were doing.
When we love the movies, the All-American Girl, in reality, it's the Canadian living in the igloo, okay? Really. The Canadian in the igloo, okay.
Eating my hard fish, yeah.
So were you sci-fi fans going into the film?
Well, I always was. I mean, I grew up going nuts on Outer Limits and Twilight Zone. I mean, those were, I wanted to be an astronomer.
Well, you are. Oops.
Well, I tried to be, and then I realized math was involved, so that took care of that career. But I had books of the planets and would watch all this stuff, but I'd never seen Flash Gordon until I went out for this movie and saw the original Buster Crabbe one.
Now about you, Sam.
What was the question again?
Sci-fi. Were you a sci-fi?
I didn't. My first film was Blake Edwards. He was more of a Pink Panther guy, but this was our first experience in blue screen, sci-fi, right? I mean, but I thought the other movie you did was a lot of sci-fi with the buried and stuff. No, that wasn't sci-fi? Dead and Buried?
No, that was a horror genre.
Horror. I thought they had a little sci-fi.
Let's get our genres right here.
Yeah. I mean, really, Flash Gordon was my first sci-fi stuff. Yeah, you're right. Well, yeah.
Were you a fan of the genre at all? Or?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I better say yes, but a lot of people don't know this, that Flash Gordon, the movie, is categorized, it's officially under the category science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Matter of fact, I received this, the Saturn Award, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. I received that Best New Star in 1980. They called me and asked me about Melody, maybe being a recipient. I said, no, just give it to me. Don't worry about her. But it was
actually my award.
But
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, that was, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Saturn Award. It's, first of all, the statue weighs about, it's about a 25-pound dumbbell. It's enormous. It's only about like that. But it's Saturn, the planet, got this big stem and this gigantic base. Yeah, they still have the Saturn Awards and all that good stuff. Yeah. So that's what it is. Horror, fantasy, and science fiction.
All right, next. Go ahead.
Hi, Sam. We meet again.
Oh, yes. Hey, how are you?
Good. Can't complain. My name is Brandon. I am from King George County, Virginia, which is an hour from here, from Richmond. First thing I want to tell you, thank you so much for doing this movie, because this is the first time, like when I first saw Flash Gordon, it was the reason why I got hooked into Queen. Ever since Flash Gordon, I got hooked in that with Queen. Cool. So I say thank you for that. And my question is, obviously you did Ted. What was it like working with Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane?
Yeah, well, Mark is great, and they're both great. Mark is seriously one of the most humble human beings you'll ever meet in your life. He really is, and he's the giver on the set. He gives in a very quiet but very, very humble guy. Big family guy. I think he's got 4 boys. They're all 1 year apart, But yeah, he's wonderful. He does a lot for the military as well. Seth MacFarlane's cool. I got this call. Like Melody got the call from Dino. I got this call around whenever Ted won.
Do you know how many times I told him, I said, speak to Seth. This is crazy. I could come in there as some old cranky therapist. We can do a thing.
She's mad because he didn't hire her for Ted or Ted 2. It was presented to me, but I said, do you really know what you're getting into? But anyway,
you owe me tons of money.
So I got this call, and we're getting these calls now. This is crazy. I'm 66, so when I was when did we do Ted 1? 10 years ago?
2012, sir.
Right, but I got the call a year and a half before that. So whatever the math is on my, that's Ted 2. I thought we did.
I actually have no interest in this
So
at all.
here's my point. Here's my point. I'm getting these calls from these men and women, who were once 8 and 9-year-old little kids who walked into a movie theater like you did, and our movie, Flash Gordon, impacted their lives so much that some of them grew up to be decision makers in Hollywood, and that's the call I got from Seth. What I just told you is what he told me when I was 8 years old. You changed my life. I said, how did I change your life? He said, well, I knew I wanted to be a creative type guy. I said, well, Seth, I've seen the Family Guy and the other animated shows you do. I said, you're not only creative, but you're a bit perverted too, And I hope I had nothing to do with that. So he said, look, we're doing this movie. It's my directorial debut, and I want to bring you in. We could always talk about Melody Anderson later, but I want to bring you in right now. That's,
sorry.
so that's how it happens. So, you know, you hear a lot of athletes and some actors say, oh, I'm not a role model. I'm not a role model. Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell everybody something. Whether we want to be or not, we are. So we need to be very, very careful, you know, what we say, our behavior in the general public. And, I mean, look, if I did not impact Seth and a lot of other people, I'd be getting other type of phone calls, you know, like maybe what's it called, a subpoena,
LAPD.
maybe a subpoena instead of, hey, you want to be in my movie.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, thank you, Brandon.
My question was, what was it like working with an Academy Award nominee?
Oh, me?
And well, yeah, and any cool stories about working with Topol?
Oh, I most of my scenes are with Topol, and really a brilliant guy. And yes, exactly right. He was brilliant. You're very good on that. And you know, it's just a joy. We had such wonderful actors on this because he would come to set totally prepared. He helped me act better because he was such a wonderful actor. And we would have lunches sometimes in the studio, in the cafeteria together. He was just an amazing, and his performance. I mean, he's so full and committed in his performance in that movie. My favorite part is when we crash in there, and his assistant has gone off and been killed by us, and he goes, "Oh no, don't leave! Come back! He was wonderful. He was really, really good. Yes.
How was Max von Sydow?
Oh, the king. Well, I think we were both so lucky because this is one of the most gracious human beings, incredible actor. I'm going to turn it over to Sam in a second, but you got only 30 seconds to respond about what Max, very wise, what Max told him, a true actor, and I just consider myself very blessed to be able to work with him. Why don't you tell him what he said?
Yeah,
to you?
he taught me a couple things. You know, he's a mentor, very professional. Long story short, he taught me two things. The first thing was he was observing. We take our lunches sometimes at the studio, and well, that's where we were. And he saw me. You know, he said, "Sam, I'm watching you pick up the tab for everybody. You're always paying for everybody. You need to save your money. Save your money." And then and that took me about 28 years to figure out. But then he after that, and then the second one was I thought I was being mentoring him and giving him good advice, not trying to be arrogant, but I noticed, we just shot his close-up, and now they're turning the camera around to do my close-up. Now that can take an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours to do that. Lighting change, all that. And his costume weighed 60 pounds, so I went to
He couldn't sit down. He had to
Yeah.
lean on a leaning a panel of wood.
Yeah, so
he
I'm
could
just trying to
relax.
look out for his best interest, but he proved a point. Anyway, I said, Max, look, you don't have, I know you want to give me the my off-camera lines. I got that, that's great. But you don't have to come back in your costume and do all that stuff. And he looked at me and he said, Sam, my job is to give you the off-camera lines so I could bring the very best of your performance out. And I will do that the best way I see fit. And I expect you to do the very same thing for me. And you know what? But what he was saying was prophetic. In between the lines, what he was also telling me was, by the way, this is your second movie, your first movie as a lead. All the other movies you're going to do with some big names and big stars, very few of them will, number one, even give you off-camera lines, you know, or if they do show up, maybe they don't really want to be there and they sort of sabotage your performance. And he was right. It was a prophetic statement. Some of the stars I've worked with over the years, I'd rather just put a piece of tape on the wall and react with a piece of tape on the wall. Seriously. So it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Good.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Melody. I was wondering if you could share any fun experiences you had from your TV show, The Highwayman.
Oh, well, yeah. By the way, she wasn't in The Highwayman. Just want to let you know that.
Nice going.
But no, I call that one of my favorite for a guy. I call it one of my favorite projects. Why? I'm filming in the great outdoors of Arizona, the desert, high desert, low desert, for 6 months. I get to dress up like a road warrior. I carry a big sawed-off shotgun strapped to my leg. I have a federal badge, and I drive an 18-wheeler. I mean, what else does a guy want to do, you know?
He's still
I
doing
just
it.
loved it. Yeah, I just freaking loved it. I loved it. And we were going to bring that back. The producer, Glenn Larson, about 5 years ago, called me back in. We're doing wardrobe fittings, boom, boom, boom. And you would know Glenn Larson. He not only did, Highwayman was one of the small shows.
But he also did Manimal, and that was the one I was
Yes.
in. Yeah.
Manimal,
Amazing guy.
Magnum PI, Knight Rider, BJ and the Bear, tons of, and Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're resurrecting Highwayman with me, and after the third or fourth meeting, he passed away. So anyway, I'm talking to the family now about the licensing rights and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Do you have any Manimal stories?
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Do you have
Good
any
question.
Manimal stories?
Oh, Manimal Stories.
Yes,
Let me
come
tell
on.
you,
Yes, you
that
do.
was the best bloody TV series. We only got six shows. I got to work with panthers, lions, snakes, tigers,
Simon McCorkindale.
llamas, Simon McCorkindale. God rest his soul. It was, and the work, Stan Winston did all the work. He's passed too. He did all the work for the transformation. You know, I think he was as great as, who's that other wonderful guy who does?
Baker.
Yeah, Rick Baker. They worked together and then they kind of went on their own businesses together. It was great for the family. It was all about, you know, good triumphing over bad. I thought it was an amazing show, and I'm proud of it, even though they made fun of it on Saturday Night Live over and over and over again.
Yeah, what year was that?
That was 1981. I did it? 82,
I
something
made,
like that.
Yeah, I made that a point not to watch that year. I remember that.
He read the reviews.
Go ahead.
Hi, guys. I was curious if the original Flash Gordon, Buster Crabbe, he was still alive when you guys were making this film, if he reached out to the production in any way, or if you met him or talked to him at all about being Flash Gordon.
He was wonderful, and he did. He toured with, I know he did a couple talk shows with me to promote the movie, and he did. He was wonderful.
Again, I wasn't invited.
Yeah, she wasn't invited, yeah. Wonderful human being, really. A lot of people don't know he was also, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, one of the 18 Tarzans.
Wow.
Also an Olympic swimmer, and also the character Captain Gallant, I believe, of the French Foreign Legion. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. But he was wonderful, very, very humble man. I'm learning in my older age now. I used to hear this about John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, people like that in the old days, that the really good, successful people were the ones that really operated in humility. I don't know if you saw was it the Golden Globes, or was it Tom Hanks who made this statement? It was wonderful. Remember when, was it the Golden Globes with Tom Hanks? Remember what he said when he took the stage, when he talked to the younger people? He said he was giving advice to people who wanted to be actors. And the key thing he said was, and show up on time, prepared. It's liberating, not just for you, but for everybody. And I just almost started to weep, because this is something rampant in the business, unprofessionalism, you know?
Wow, yeah.
And he nailed it when he said that. And that's the key thing for any business you do. Show up on time, be prepared. And I love the other thing he said with that. Show up on time, be prepared, and have a mind full of ideas. Isn't that encouraging? Something like that. Maybe I paraphrased that. But he's wonderful.
Thank you.
Was there a plan for a second Flash Gordon movie, and did you all want to make another one?
Well, yeah, we signed for quite a few. Yeah. Did you sign for multiple sequels, did
They
you?
only invited me for one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, look, in the movie business, whatever. There's no rhyme or reason why this, that, you know. I remember The Highwayman was a huge success. We beat the Emmys, we beat whatever. But they decided not to bring it back because they had a contract for another actor, so they brought his series in. But for The Highwayman, for Flash Gordon, yeah, it's funny because when people use this vernacular in the business, my project's in development or the sequel's in development. What that usually means in reality is they don't have the money. However, the last 3 people that bought the licensing rights to do for the screenplay, we're talking about top reputable people. I think the first guy was Steven Summers, Van Helsnick, then Neil Moritz for all the Fast and Furious. And recently at Fox, for the last 4 years, has been in development, John Davis and Matthew Vaughn. We're talking about gigantic names here. And they're going to do this. And they met with me 4.5, 5 years ago and going to do the sequel, which they don't like to use that word now because it's personal. Now it's the reboot, or no, it's their own version. But Disney just bought Fox, and Disney came into Fox and said, no, we're not doing a live action now. We're going to do an animated Flash Gordon. And they brought in the guy, Tanaka, who directed Thor. What's his name? There you go. Glad you said it, not me. So they're going to do the animated version of Flash Gordon. That's where it is now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Brian Bless story?
Yeah, well, Melody's got some yeah, we all do. Yeah, I better let her talk a little bit. I don't want to hear it later on. You got to give her the Snickers bar. You seen the commercial? Give her the freaking Snickers bar. Give her a whole box of Snickers bars. My God.
Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Now you're going to hear something interesting. Well, first of all, we just to let y'all know that I'm doing what you're doing, y'all. You caught it.
Didn't I told him that? What happened?
Yes. But what we're going to do later in this broadcast is we're going to I will be Ornella with the accent, playing Princess Leia, and Sam will be Brian Blessed, playing Brian Blessed. So you will get a chance to ask them through us. We are the psychic channels, so we will respond to your questions. So Brian Blessed, he's a brilliant actor, but funny. I mean, he's climbed Mount Everest. He's just this life adventure. And sometimes you start listening to his stories, and you kind of go, is this really happening? Well, yes, I was in that.
I'm doing Brian, you're doing Ornella.
Maybe I'll do Brian, and you can do Ornella. And I did this. So he was always very creative as an actor. And there was a scene when I'm on the disc, when we're in the Silver Palace, and he puts me on the table and spins me around. Well, he also pinched my rear end, which I had no idea was coming. And of course, since he's such a joy, I of course went with it and made it work with the character. But he was full of surprises. You just never knew. We were very lucky. Yeah, Sean?
Yeah. Gordon's alive. Brian is so cool. I was just with him in Manchester in December. And again, I told you he's supposed to be here, but we will be with him in Liverpool next weekend. That's right.
Yes.
But he has such a command presence of the stage and what he'll do. Last time the 3 of us appeared a couple of years ago, he does this. Here's all of us. And and he'll walk up here. He'll come downstage and he'll start talking. Now, I've climbed Mount Everest 4 times. I'm also a cosmonaut. Yes, I know I'm 80. I was trained by the Russians. I am a cosmonaut. Yes.
He says that.
Don't you question me. I'm a fucking cosmonaut. He likes to say the F word. I'm not going to say that because we got some kids in here. And he's out there. And he'll come down here, he'll get into this 10-minute monologue, and after about 10 minutes, he'll look back. We haven't said a word. He'll say, look at Melody, look at Sam. Aren't they beautiful? Now back to me. That's him. He's wonderful.
It really is, and the stories were just, he regaled over lunchtime, were just so, and one time when Sam and Timothy were on the disc, I was laughing so hard because he was standing there making jokes the whole time because he knew the camera wouldn't read us. And, I almost had an accident. I was laughing so hard. He's wild. He's just as wild as he seems
And
on
I'm going to
screen.
try to bring up this video to allow you to hear the audio. I had no idea I'm sorry to interrupt. I had no idea he sings Pavarotti.
No.
Did you ever not hear this? Keep talking. I want to bring the video up, and I'll play it for you.
Oh, my
All right. I was
true.
blown away. Of course, he almost fell over when he was done. But it was freaking Pavarotti on stage. I'm telling you right now. Anyway, go ahead. Keep talking. I'll try to find this. Go ahead.
Anyway, Sam was just a pain in the ass to work with. Every day, we were looking for him. Get here on time. Does somebody, you wanted to ask another question?
Well, the question that was proposed was my question. But first I wanted to say, ma'am and sir, it's an honor and pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
My mom, my sister and I would watch Flash Gordon on a regular basis growing up, and we can quote the movie back and forth. So this is just a great moment to be able to meet you all. So secondary question to Mr. Jones. Yes. What was it like working on Stargate SG-1?
Quite an experience. Probably the most difficult job I ever had to do. I learned a big lesson on that. First of all, the whole cast and crew were incredible. But, playing the bounty hunter. And I get in trouble a lot for improvising. My later years after Flash Gordon, I took the Groundlings class twice, the beginning class.
That's an improv group in LA.
Yeah, improvisation. So a lot of writers, they want you to stick to script. I got that. But when I started taking improv, it freed me up big time. Anybody who wants to do acting, take your scene study class, but you got to take improv. So I got in trouble, and I didn't realize, but on the set of SG-1, they're very, it's all about, I'm not saying it's iambic pentameter, but it's all very strict about pronunciations of the characters and how they do things, and they do not like improvisation. And my deal was I learned a big lesson about memorization. I changed my whole method of memorization. I used to memorize all my lines by blocking, meaning that's where melody is. If I get up and move, okay, I've memorized these lines, that's where I'm going to be. Now, okay, I'm over here. These are the lines I say. I come down to you. Now I got it. Well, in SG-1, so we had this long scene outside. The gun, go sit by the log. Now go over here to Richard Dean. Now you lean against a tree. Now you pick this up, you move that. And we filmed it. It was perfect. I did my lines. It was a great scene. The director came up to me and he said, now, I'm going to take that prop out of your hand. I don't want you to go over there. I want you to cross over here. I'm going to give you another prop. Don't go back to Richard Dean. I want you to go over to this actress and that alien over there. I said, okay, I got it. So he said, action. Changed up all my blocking. Nothing came out of my mouth. Nothing came out of my mouth. I couldn't remember one line. And then this is where it gets embarrassing. You can never allow this as an actor. You got to be fully prepared, and I'm about to tell you what the definition of fully prepared is. So after the 21st or 22nd take, okay, you don't want to do that, all right, because they may not want to bring you back again. The director pulled me to the side. He goes, I want to tell you something about memorization. He said, I should be able to, without any warning, I should be able to hang you upside down from a tree and throw little pebbles at your face while you're talking, and you should have all your dialogue memorized. And you know what? He was right, and that changed my whole career about memorization and being, because my buddy's telling me now, he's in a hit series for CBS called SWAT. They don't play around anymore with actors, even actors who think they're prepared. Now they're on a steady cam. It's one take. It's a 2, 3, 4 minute scene. They don't cut, and you cannot cause the camera to cut because you dropped a line or forgot a line. So it's, the dynamics are changing, but you got to really be prepared, and that's being prepared is rehearsing it every which way, even in your sleep, even in the bathroom. Rehearse it.
Even memorizing the other actors' lines as
yes,
well.
Yes. Keep talking because I want to bring
much.
this up.
Thank you.
Come on, questions.
One of my my favorite parts of Flash Gordon were the costumes, and I was
Yes.
wondering, like, what was your favorite? Because you got to wear so many, like, really awesome costumes, so I wanted to know which was your favorite.
Tell them.
I'm.
I want to get this audio.
You'll notice the stress on my face when you come to the table. Now you know why. Well, first of all, the man who did the production design was his name is Danilo Donati, and he worked for Fellini. So he had that wonderful kind of circus mindset of fantasy, but he also followed the comic very well because the comic was very, very Asian and very sensual in lots of colors. And one of my costumes, I actually wore it more than any of the other ones. It was sort of orange beading, and when I ran out with Topol and all this sort of stuff. And the little Italian women in the workroom, bead by bead, would put these beads into a leather and plaster of Paris crown shape. And I wore it so long that throughout the movie, as time goes on, it starts to lean forward. And so you can see exactly what part of the movie I'm in and see if it was shot before or after this thing started to move down. The wedding dress weighed 33 pounds. It was all bugle beads. And 40 million hairpins to hold those things in. So sometimes I would get a headache. But they were fantastic, and I really was very lucky to be in them. I loved them a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more quick one.
That would be me. And this question is for you, Melody.
Yes.
Okay. So, and it's again about your costumes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just in recent years, we saw in Jurassic Park where she's running in her high heels, and that is not going to work. There was a fight scene, and this stands out to me every time. Dale takes off her shoes and sets them down nicely, beats everybody up, picks up her shoes and takes off. And it was like so real when everything else in the movie was not.
Well,
it was cool, but
that was because I said a girl will never leave her expensive shoes behind. And the director liked it, and he let me put it in. So that was my idea.
I thought it was absolutely perfect.
Have to take the shoes.
Yes. She
Yeah.
sets them down so nicely, runs around, does her work, and then picks them up again.
That's right. I'm always a girl.
Anyway, I just wanted to know if it was on purpose, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think we
So
have to-
Sam is still.
I'm trying. I think I found it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Lord, keep talking. I think I got it.
Well, actually,
But here, I'll do a warm up. You hear that? Yeah, go ahead, talk. Yeah, I'll find it. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Well, in 1927, I was down in Miss.
You can tell I'm an expert at these iPhones.
So because she's not here, Ornella, I just want you to know that Ornella was a wonderful woman to work with. She's a superb actor and has done many great movies since. And I'm so sorry because I was looking forward to seeing her again after all this time because I haven't seen her. Him I see every few months, but I haven't seen her since we finished the movies. So I'm as disappointed as you are.
I think it's coming up.
Yeah, actually, because we got the sign, we have to wrap up,
We
unfortunately.
got to wrap up. I'm telling you, come downstairs and see it because we got other people coming in. But thank you so much for everybody coming. And come to our table, get some pictures.
Yes.
Let's do the
ready?
GalaxyCon selfie. If everybody wants to come
There.
up to the front
Listen
here.
up. Listen up. Here we go.
All right, Sam.
Everyone